All right, everybody, buckle up because we are diving deep this time. Zippel Bay State Park, Minnesota, that's where we're headed.
Zippel Bay. Beautiful spot.
Ever get that whiff of pine needles like warmed up in the sun?
Yeah.
That's what hits you first. Then, bam, sandy beach stretches out, and beyond that, Lake of the Woods. Huge, sparkling, the whole bit. Postcard perfect, but
There's always more to it, right?
you know it.
Right.
We've gone all-out podcast, this YouTube video, maps, even some old-timey records about the place. We're figuring out Zippel Bay's deal together.
And what really struck me straight off is just where this park is.
Okay, geographically speaking.
Exactly. Northern Minnesota, practically a stone's throw from Canada. Like, Lake of the Woods is the border.
I'm looking at the map right now. It really is like its own little island world up there.
You're not far off. Lake of the Woods is famous for its islands, thousands of them. One of the largest freshwater lakes, globally even. And the DNR virtual tour actually made this point super clear. This lake, it's got moods, you know. Tranquil 1 minute, 5-foot waves the next. No joke.
So even if I see sunshine in the forecast, pack the windbreaker, got it. But, moody or not, still sounds gorgeous. Now I'm all about doing stuff when I travel, and let me tell you, we found tons to do at Zippel Bay.
Oh yeah, like what?
Hiking trails everywhere, people raving about the fishing, campgrounds, swimming, bird watching. You could even go snowshoeing in the winter.
It's not just about having a bunch of options, though. What comes across is they do a few things really well. Fishing, for one, walleye apparently are the thing to catch.
Now see, that's not my area of expertise.
And then for any bird watchers out there, Zippel Bay is one of the few spots left in the Great Lakes where the piping plover nests.
Had to look that one up, I'll admit. Tiny little shorebird, right?
They're endangered around there, actually. Population's really tanked. Wikipedia went into that whole thing.
Wow.
So, picture this. You're strolling along Zippel Bay and boom, one of these rare birds flits by. Pretty special.
That adds a whole other layer, right? Like you're sharing this space with these creatures barely hanging on.
It's humbling, for sure.
Zippel Bay's not just about what you see right now, though. It's got all this history layered in there, too.
Oh, absolutely. Long before it was a park, Native Americans were thriving around Lake of the Woods, relied on it for, well, everything.
Their history is the history of that place.
It's woven into the very fabric.
Then come the fur traders,
Mm-hmm.
and our guy, Mr. Wilhelm Zippel, the park's namesake. And not just a name either, he built a whole fishing village there.
Yeah, Zippel's story, I don't know if ironic is the right word, but
Go on.
he was right in the thick of the sturgeon fishing industry, which was huge on Lake of the Woods back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Sturgeon, those massive fish that can live to be over 100 years old, prized for their caviar. They were everywhere. Zippel was part of that whole boom.
And we know how that goes overfishing, right? Even places beautiful as Zippel Bay, kind of a cautionary tale, in a way.
It really makes you think, right? Even in the most pristine-looking places, this tension between humans and the environment. The choices we make, even centuries ago, they echo.
Totally. But okay, enough doom and gloom for now. I always love when we get some first-hand accounts on these dives, and lucky for us,
We found one.
someone actually vlogged their Zippel Bay trip. And let me tell you, they captured the vibe of the place perfectly, especially the sensory experience.
I was just gonna say that. The way they described the sand, soft, like powdered sugar, and the colors of the trees in the fall, vivid reds, yellows, oranges, painting the whole landscape.
And they were there with their mom, too, which I thought was sweet.
Makes it even more special sharing it with family like that.
100%. Speaking of special experiences, what about a night under the stars at Zippel Bay? Are you a needs my creature comforts kind of camper, or more of a roughing it type?
Oh, you know me, I'm all about disconnecting. Getting back to nature, no distractions. Why do you ask?
Well, let's just say the DNR website uses the word rustic to describe the campgrounds.
Ah, I see where this is going. No Wi-Fi or glamping tents, I take it.
You know me too well. But seriously, no electricity at all in the campgrounds. That's a deal breaker for a lot of people.
It might seem daunting, but think about it this way. When was the last time you truly unplugged? Sat by a fire, listening to the sounds of nature. That's what Zippel Bay offers.
Okay, you've got me there. And it's not like you're totally roughing it. Vault toilets, hand pumps for water. I can handle rustic if it means peace, quiet, and those incredible starry skies you mentioned.
See? Sometimes the trade-off is worth it.
Totally agree. You know, as we're talking about all this, I keep thinking about this one detail from that YouTube video that really stuck with me.
Well, the fishing pier.
You remember?
Hard to forget, completely taken over by wildlife, but they don't say what kind.
It's driving me crazy. Picture this pier jutting out into the lake, but instead of fishermen, it's covered in
What?
otters, pelicans. Who knows?
Your guess is as good as mine.
What do you think it could be, listeners?
Makes you wonder what it could be, right?
Right. It's like one big question mark out there on the lake.
And that kind of mystery, that's part of what makes Zippel Bay so cool, you know?
I'm with you. It's like we can read all about it, watch videos, whatever, but ultimately...
Nature's keeping some secrets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of nature, something else from that DNR tour came to mind. They mentioned controlled burns.
Yeah, they do controlled burns, selective logging, the whole 9 yards.
Wait, so they're intentionally burning down trees? Sounds kind of counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Seems that way, but it's all about fire prevention, long-term, by clearing out underbrush, taking out some trees strategically.
They're actually making it safer.
Less fuel for those massive uncontrolled wildfires. Those can wipe out an entire ecosystem, you know?
So a little intervention prevents a bigger disaster down the line.
Exactly. It's like sometimes managing nature means thinking a few steps ahead.
It's true. We've got a lot to learn from how nature works. You know, thinking about Zippel Bay, tranquil, but also kind of wild, historic, but always changing. Seems like the kind of place you'd want to go to get away from it all.
Totally. Get that peace and quiet.
But also those sunsets over the lake. Wouldn't you want to share that with someone special?
It's that perfect blend, right? Tranquility, but also...
room for adventure, for making memories.
Exactly. You got the best of both worlds.
We've talked a lot about how Zippel Bay looks, the beaches, the colors, that huge lake.
Yeah.
But if we could transport ourselves there right now, what would we hear?
Close your eyes for a sec. Imagine standing on that sandy shore. What's the first sound that comes to mind?
Okay, give me a second. Sun on my face, sand between my toes.
Yeah.
I hear the waves, that gentle lapping against the shore. So peaceful.
It's like nature's own rhythm, right? Depending on the time of year, you might even get a whole chorus of birds going.
Oh, yeah. Like what kind of birds are we talking?
Zippel Bay's got it all. Songbirds, those melodic little guys, and loons, you know, those calls that echo across the water. Haunting, but beautiful.
Okay, now I really wish I was there. And what about the wind? I bet it whips through those pine trees.
Absolutely. That rustling sound constantly changing, like music almost. And depending on the season,
I go on.
fall, you might hear the crunch of leaves underfoot. Winter, it's that soft padding sound as you walk through the snow.
Man, you're really making me want to book a trip. It's amazing how sound can transport you like that. But it's not just sights and sounds that make a place memorable. But what about stories? We've talked about the Native American history, Wilhelm Zippel's time there, but are there any local legends, like about Zippel Bay specifically?
You know, we didn't come across any legends tied to the park itself, but Lake of the Woods.
Now, that's a different story.
Oh, yeah. Given how huge the lake is, all the different cultures that have passed through there, it's got a rich folklore.
Like what? Give me some examples.
While some folks whisper about these mystical creatures living in the depths of the lake, others, they'll tell you about hidden treasures just waiting to be found.
Ooh, this is my kind of stuff.
And of course, there are always tales of strange occurrences, unexplained events, especially in those parts of the lake that get shrouded in mist.
See, now you have to get spooked out there, especially if you're alone. Makes you want to grab a flashlight and go exploring, right?
Right. And that's the beauty of a place like Zippel Bay. It's not just about pretty views.
It gets under your skin, makes you think.
Exactly. It makes you want to dig deeper, learn more about the history, the ecology, even the myths surrounding it.
It's like every step you take could uncover another layer of the story. But you know what else gets to me?
What's that?
Thinking about those early settlers, especially around Lake of the Woods. Harsh winters, relying entirely on the lake for survival.
Talk about resilience.
Seriously. Makes you appreciate a warm house and a stocked fridge, that's for sure.
We've got it easy these days, that's for sure. But yeah, those stories really highlight the strength of the human spirit, especially when you're up against the raw power of nature.
No kidding. So we've got the Native American history, the European settlers. But Zippel Bay today, it must be quite the cultural blend.
It is. Over time, so many different groups have been drawn to this area. Think about it. The fur trade alone brought together native communities, French trappers, then later Scandinavian and English settlers.
All drawn to the same place for different reasons.
Each group brought their own traditions, languages, ways of life. That's how you get this incredible cultural tapestry.
And those influences, you can still see them today, right?
Oh, absolutely. Whether it's the food, music, Even the architecture, those layers are still there.
Like this living history,
100%.
Makes you wonder how artists have captured it all. Can you imagine the paintings inspired by those Zippel Bay sunsets? The poems about the pines?
Oh, absolutely. Artists have always been drawn to nature. And Zippel Bay, with that raw beauty, the history, the stories, it's like a gold mine of inspiration.
It's not just about painting what you see, though, right?
Nope. It's about capturing the feeling a place evokes, the sounds, the stories lingering in the air.
Exactly. It's like they're translating the language of nature into music, paintings, poems.
Sharing the experience with others.
So cool. We've covered so much ground: history, ecology, culture, but we haven't really looked ahead. What do you think the next chapter holds for Zippel Bay?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Especially now with everything our planet's facing, climate change, pollution, tourism pressures.
Yeah, it really makes you think about the legacy we're leaving behind.
It's a big responsibility. How do we make sure future generations get to experience the same Zippel Bay we're talking about?
Makes you realize it's not just about visiting a park, right?
Not at all. It's about being mindful, sticking to the trails, packing out trash, respecting the wildlife.
Basically, leave it better than you found it.
Exactly. Because the future of Zippel Bay, of all our natural spaces, depends on the choices we make right now.
And it's not just about protecting it for future generations either, right?
There's more to it than that.
It's about recognizing that nature has value in and of itself.
Absolutely. Nature's not just here for us to use up. It has a right to exist, to thrive for its own sake.
We're just one part of a much bigger picture, and our actions have consequences.
100%. When we protect places like Zippel Bay, we're protecting biodiversity, clean water, clean air, a healthy planet for all of us.
And we're protecting a sense of wonder.
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing like experiencing nature. It's grounding, inspiring. It reminds us what really matters.
I love that. Well, I think it's time we brought our Zippel Bay deep dive to a close for now. But before we do, any final thoughts on what makes this place so special?
One word keeps coming to mind: sanctuary.
Sanctuary, I like that.
It's a place to escape the everyday, to reconnect with something bigger.
Reconnect with nature, with history, with ourselves even.
Exactly. Zippel Bay is a place to find peace, to be present in the beauty of the natural world, to create memories that'll last.
Beautifully said. And that sense of sanctuary, it's not just for people who actually go to Zippel Bay, is it?
You think so?
Even just learning about it, picturing ourselves on those shores, it sparks something.
That's true. Just knowing places like that exist can give us hope.
It reminds us there's still beauty in the world, even with everything else going on.
Powerful stuff.
We've covered so much ground with Zippel Bay. I mean, from its location practically on Canada's doorstep,
right on the edge,
to those early Native American stories woven into the landscape.
Long before it was ever called Zippel Bay, even.
And we've talked about the tough lessons, too, like how even a place that seems untouched can be shaped by human actions, going all the way back to the sturgeon fishing days.
Choices echoing through time,
It makes you think.
Yeah.
But we also imagined ourselves there, right? Standing on that soft sand, feeling the sun, listening to those waves lap against the shore.
Don't forget the loon calls, haunting.
And maybe a little spooky if you're out there alone. But even with all that, I feel like
we've only just scratched the surface.
That's exactly it. Every time we thought we knew Zippel Bay, something new would pop up in our research. Like, remember that YouTube video? The vlogger said being there felt like stepping back in time.
It's true. And then there's that whole mystery with the fishing pier.
Taken over by
who knows what?
Still bugs me that we couldn't figure that one out. But maybe that's part of the magic, this idea that there are still places where nature keeps its secrets.
I like that. It's like Zippel Bay's calling out to that adventurous part of us, the part that wants to just go and get a little lost in it all.
It's not about checking things off a list, that's for sure. It's about letting go, being open to whatever you find.
You're speaking my language. Because you're right, it's not just about where you go, it's how it makes you feel. And Zippel Bay, from everything we've gathered, it seems like the kind of place that leaves you feeling, peaceful, resilient even.
Connected to something bigger than yourself. Yes, that's it. So, to everyone listening, here's a little something to take with you. As you're going about your day, close your eyes for a minute and imagine yourself on the shores of Lake of the Woods. Sun setting, painting the sky with those incredible colors. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel?
Let it all wash over you. And ask yourself, what will your Zippel Bay story be?
That's something worth thinking about. Until next time, everyone, happy adventuring.
Keep exploring.